Karmapa foreword to the 5 Royal Sutras. The reason why they are called the Royal Sutras has its own history, which can be found by enthusiasts should they wish to learn about it. My personal understanding is that the term royal can be understood as referring to you yourself. After all, you are the center of the universe. You are your own master. Sutra is often translated into English as discourse. I suppose that interpretation has its place, but I think that a more accurate way of describing the Sanskrit word sutra, in Tibetan do, would be summary. How many different words should there be to describe a particular word? Or how many colors are needed to describe a color? It's the same dilemma. So, the awakened ones used the most common words or terminology available at the time to suggest the idea of a summary, something like in short, to use a more colloquial expression. There are of course countless sutras, and there are numerous royal or kingly sutras as well. From among all these, 5 have been selected and introduced in this publication. These sutras can be described as unfathomable wisdom methods of the Buddhas. They were originally given by Buddha Shakyamuni in the form of spoken words, and we are fortunate that they are still available in written form today. These sutras are vehicles. If you think of yourself as depending on something to move forward, they are paths if you think of yourself as the vehicle. These 5 Royal Sutras represent the paths of aspiration, cleansing, view, meditation, confession. Aspiration. Aspiration is a vehicle or a path that supports or complements what you think of as you. For example, if you think, I am a baker, and that's what I do and what I am, then this vehicle complements that attitude, the philosophy of I think, therefore I am. This vehicle helps you with the am. That state of mind is not troubled with aspiring to save the world. This path simply lets you reign as the baker. Whether you are a mediocre baker or not, it lets you be. It supports you to be the baker you felt you were. The urge to become a better baker may be useful, but fundamentally being comfortable helps you to be a better baker in the end. You're already a baker, you just didn't know it. The point is to accept who you think you are. Then, if you think you need improvement, it will be easy to get there. Of course, this explanation won't do justice to what the awakened ones mean, not by a long stretch. It is just a mere personal interpretation. In that manner, this path is a way to dream consciously. Cleansing. It's a tricky thing to interpret this one. It goes along with our notion that there is something to cleanse. When using the analogies of purifying gold, or the moon being unveiled from behind the clouds, the notion that there is something to cleanse is deeply ingrained in our concepts. But if we look at it carefully, the meaning of these analogies is more that of gold not containing any dirt, or the moon not having any clouds on it. So the dirt or the clouds are not the focal point, although they appear as obstacles. In a way, the dirt and the clouds are factors that indirectly enhance the beauty of the gold and the moon. Therefore, this path is a way to unburden ourselves from the confusion of seeing impurities as being a part of the gold and the clouds as being a part of the moon, meaning that they play their part, but they are not necessarily or essentially wrong. The gold and the moon do not need saving from them. The process of practicing this path is not an arduous one, as if there was a huge pile of dirty dishes waiting in the sink to be cleaned. In particular, that washing is not a duty. We don't have a duty to save the world or a duty to get the bill. In fact, it is exactly what cleansing actually means, taking a bath. By now we have taken countless baths. Was that a chore or a duty? No, in fact it was, in the modern sense, therapeutic. And we look forward to that bath. We don't count the baths we've taken and say, I'm this old and I've bathed this many times. There's no sense of burden, no sense of someone or something breathing down our necks to bathe. meaning there is no duty. This applies equally to all the coming practices too. View. It's always rather sort of paradox when we use words to describe something, or rather, it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it kind of explains what you want to explain, but on the other hand, the very explanation defeats its own purpose, and often the more you explain, the worse it gets. So when we say view in this case, we are like a deer dazed by fog lights. Therefore, it's difficult to say, this is what it really means. However, we can meander our way to suggest something like this. First, view is the subtlest form there is when it comes to implying the quality or the identity of Buddhism. We won't go into the views of the various yanas here. We might be bored beyond belief were we to try. Nevertheless, this topic of view helps us to get a personal glimpse of the way the Bodhisattvas see life. If we were to use an analogy here, it might be something close to bird watching. It's subtle enough that there is a personal involvement in bird watching, yet waiting is pretty much the main ingredient. You can't force it. Someone once told me a story of how he tried to photograph birds and wanted to force it. He was in a hurry, and as a result caught photos only of birds fleeing away. So you can't force yourself or on others. You may get to view a bird or you may not. Even if you did all the preparation from your side, there is no guarantee. That's probably why the Bodhisattvas, if they are viewed like officers to save the day, will often not show up punctually to the crime scenes. Anyway, view is intimately associated with prajna, primordial wisdom. If we are to harvest this view, being mindful is the ingredient and the factor that can bring forward an appearance of this thing called view. Some of the key factors are listening, contemplating, and meditating. Listening, trying to listen to sounds and arbitrarily categorizing them as this and that. Contemplating, then, whatever mental dictionaries or concepts are formed, trying to memorize them or imprint them on one's mind repeatedly. Meditating, then trying to let the well-fashioned concepts help you to listen to the sounds once again. This time around, the sound you hear is not better or worse. If anything, you only see the limitations of the factors you applied in order to listen, and you almost feel amused for trying. At the same time, you appreciate the factors in the same way you appreciate a painting for trying to capture a scene, although the actual scene is incomparable to the painting. You just appreciate the artist, in this case yourself, no matter whether the artist is talented or not. You appreciate both the errors and the exaggerations of the artist. Perhaps that genuine realization of the limitations of effort is the view, prajna, primordial wisdom. Meditation. The two obvious and commonly known factors that make up meditation are shamatha and vipassana. These two are actually inseparable. One can try to dissect them, but the headache of which is more advanced will be like the chicken and the egg. We will never know which came first. Strangely enough, just calming shamatha alone will agitate you. That's because there is no evolution in a way. There is no completion. The first sign of that agitation is boredom. It's sort of like a state of indecision. Insight or clarity, vipassana, cannot be achieved without calmness, so the two aspects are complementary. When we attempt to embrace both these aspects, a state of balance called samadhi manifests. Samadhi is the thing we are looking for when meditating. And if we put this samadhi in a context as a thing, it is like a shy little fairy creature, super sensitive to those who wish to have a peek at it. When it comes to describing this state of focus or balance, spontaneous is a good choice of word. This spontaneity is so clever that it can sense your subtlest thoughts. It's like trying to capture a good memory you once had, a good cup of tea or a soothing breeze under a tree. It's similar to New Year's and anniversary celebrations. There are moments of joy in life that come about all of a sudden, spontaneously, and then we want to recapture that experience, so we mark it on the calendar. But there is no guarantee that the act of confining things in this way will reproduce the thing we are looking for, that experience that is long gone. In fact, as a result, it will likely shy away. For practitioners particularly, any form of realization or any form of awakening-like feelings is a tricky thing to handle. If one tries to recapture that feeling, it shies away. So this meditation method is like tickling out laughter. Humor is the greatest and easiest way to tickle out the state of samadhi. That means that seeing the ridiculousness of life has the essence of samadhi. And for practitioners, seeing the ridiculousness of trying to capture moksha or liberation can also bring that humor. And if we look at it like that, it can't really be organized. It just sort of happens spontaneously. Calming therefore helps to somehow engage in spontaneity, and insight helps to focus on or be aware of or be in tune with the happenings. Strangely enough, insight has a sense of ignorance, but unlike regular ignorance, this ignorance is almost a conscious one. It's like distracting oneself in order to focus. A story about Saraha, a great Indian Mahasiddha who lived around the 6th century, illustrates this kind of ignorance. One day, during his wanderings as an itinerant yogi, he came upon a lady arrowsmith sitting by the side of the road and going about her craft. Then, as now, much of communal life in an Indian town was centered along the main road. This was where everything was happening. On that particular day, the local king happened to be passing through that same town, along the same road, together with his magnificent entourage. The whole town came running together to gawp at the spectacle, with everybody leaving behind whatever they were doing to admire the king and his bannermen, with their carriages and elephants. A finer entertainment could hardly be imagined. The arrowsmith, however, barely had a glance to spare for this spectacle. So focused was she on her craft that she completely ignored what was going on around her. Witnessing this, Saraha was brought to a state of deep humility, because he understood something right there and then. For the first time he really saw the quality of samadhi. He immediately went to the arrowsmith and asked to become her apprentice. He became her student and attained the complete realization of Mahamudra. It is for this reason that he is usually depicted holding an arrow. What we can understand from this story is that focusing is very important, but what does that mean? It means that you have to ignore something, just like this lady ignored the biggest entertainment because she was so focused on her craft. This is the most amazing form of ignorance, the best form of stupidity. Focusing on breathing is a common way to embrace shamatha and vipassana. Other elements like sitting are sensible ingredients to add. Focusing on death is the focus in this sutra. It's a simple and pithy way to meditate, since we are bothered by the idea of death. Be careful not to associate the word right with samadhi too much, in terms of right samadhi, as if there were a wrong samadhi. Meditation is for certain not a spaced out state of mind, or a state where one is constantly thinking all of the time, or having no thoughts at all. Of course, one can do both of those things as an ingredient, as an indirect way to recognize flaws, but they aren't absolute. Most of the time, meditation might seem like it is associated with stillness, as if it's a way to be rigidly unmoving, a state of being numb from emotions. We can absolutely try that, but that will just make us cling to the emotions. Confession. Confession is not a word that does justice to the Tibetan term shakpa. It's not repentance either. It's more like letting go of something that you know only too well, such as letting go of an addiction. When we talk about 35 Buddhas here, this is just a practical cue for us. There can be myriads of Buddhas in a single quark. If confession were real, we would be done for. Actually, it's more of a way to accept karma, both the aspects of occurrence and doing, meaning we are in a constant state of anxiety. This anxiety is between what seem like occurrences of an uncontrollable nature, of life overwhelming us, and on the other side, seemingly uncontrollable actions of our own, as we desperately try to get a grip on change. More than confessing this anxiety to someone else, confessing to oneself has a weightless or burdenless quality. The Buddhas are merely a mirror of one's weightless nature. These vehicles are simple to apply and to engage with. It's like becoming a child again. Not that there's anything wrong with being an adult. There's an advantage of being able to view the child's perspective from an adult state. These definitions are a little forced in some ways, meaning that when we use words to express the natural, we have no choice but to define it according to words. Therefore, we have to accept that no matter the quality of our definitions, a certain or even the greater part of the natural is always missing, so we have to make do with that. Therefore, we cannot properly describe or do justice to any of those aforementioned parts, but if we try, it will be something like this. In a way, whether it's us human beings or any non-human beings, sentient or not, if we really look at it, one of the many things we all have in common is that we don't want to really work. We use a demeaning term. We like being lazy. Sure, if we look at ants, for example, their life suggests the opposite. They seem to spend their entire individual and social life working. But if we zoom in a little, they are not necessarily working. Even if they seem to work and work hard, I would dare say that they are hardly burdened by concepts of having to work, because you have to work. So the ants are lazy in terms of having to work, lazy from concepts. From this perspective, these paths or practices are in line with similar common things that we all share. These practices hardly demand any effort. They constitute a lazy path. Therefore, we don't have to be concerned that these practices are a way to shake off our laziness, as if we had some imperfection. If we are in fact lazy, then these practices are a way to make the best of this lethargy. It's like letting the laziness do the work for us. Aspiration, for example, is a lazy person's practice. It can be practiced while walking or sitting. Even if we are being couch potatoes, we can practice it. Maybe that is not an ideal way to practice, but it's possible. The individualized body, speech, and mind is like a boat for a bodhisattva. Emotions and karma are like the waves in the wind. It doesn't matter whether it's your emotions or my emotions, they are just like the wind and the waves. Bodhisattvas use these to sail, so they never fight them, they never deny them. We are in the same state. Isn't that great news? What I truly hope is that the readers new to these practices will not be troubled by the methods introduced in this text or bored by what may seem like outdated religious sermons. Nor should they understand it as a teaching in the sense that they need to be taught because they are in some way stupid or ignorant. As for the practitioners, I hope that these practices will not be tiring, that they won't get the sense that they are hard work. May the practice of the 5 Royal Sutras be of great benefit for novices and practitioners alike. May this publication benefit all sentient beings.